Welcome to Hassle-Free RE, the show where we share tips, tricks, and stories from the short-term rental industry and business alike. Hosted by Dave Minapace and Will Van Wickler. They'll help you navigate the exciting and ever-evolving world of short-term rentals. Whether you're a seasoned host or just starting out, they've got something just for you. In each episode, they'll bring you insider insights, expert advice, and real-life stories from hosts and industry professionals who have been through it all. They'll cover everything from maximizing your rental income and profits to creating unforgettable guest experiences and handling unexpected day-to-day challenges with ease. Are you ready to discover the secrets to running a successful short-term rental business without the hassle? Then let's get started. This is Hassle-Free RE.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hassle-Free RE. Hey, real quick, if you enjoy this show, whatever platform you're listening to it on, go ahead and if you would, leave us a 5-star review. It just helps us grow in the rankings and helps for funding for the show. We greatly appreciate it. And with that, I'm Dave Minapace, president of the 5-star co-host Launchpad Consulting, here with New England's #1 short-term real estate agent, Mr. Will Van Wickler. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Things are kicking off in Cape Cod. Like February is one of my favorite months. Two things happen at the same time. Folks in Cape Cod are like, oh crap, I want to get a manager. I want to get bookings. Either I'm not getting bookings myself or I'm not getting, my manager's not getting bookings. So it tends to be a busy time for us in the co-host business as well as the consulting business for folks that want to take that back on or improve their listings and don't want a manager. And the same sort of thing happens in the mountain markets as well. You know, the season doesn't shake out the way a homeowner had hoped, or, you know, communications kind of gone sour between them and their managers. So it's a really exciting time for us because we get to meet a whole bunch of new homeowners, get to take on new clients, and it's always, you know, the Q1 is always a season of growth, and so I love it. I love it, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I feel the same way. It's like now is time where real estate starts to kind of pick up. People start talking
Yeah.
about this elusive spring market. We're kicking off a lot of projects, figuring out acquisitions for the year and the investment company, and it's all around good. It's been strong.
I love it. I love it. And you know what? I'll throw in a little plug too. One thing that's been exciting, we just got all our approvals with the permit. So for anyone that doesn't know, we moved to a new home in Holliston, Mass, back in November or December of 2024. We did not sell our old home. We're undergoing this big, huge, like full gut renovation on the home, and everything's gotten approved. And now it's like it's on. So kitchen's getting remodeled, floors are done, house is getting painted, all the electrical is getting updated, new bathroom, new mudroom. If anybody is thinking about buying a home in Holliston, 3-bed, 1-bath ranch, talk to me. You never know. I'm not opposed to selling it off market as long as it goes to a good and happy family. So I'll let that one sit there on Apple Podcast for a while.
Forever.
And forever, really. You know, but with that, I'm really excited about our topic today. Will, you want to introduce our topic?
Me too. Yeah, we're going to be
Yeah.
talking about the proposed Newry vacation rental registration ordinance.
Yeah.
A little bit of a mouthful there. And a lot of people are maybe talking about like restrictions or these laws. It's literally a registration ordinance. That's
Yeah.
all it is. It says it
Yeah.
right there. So I'm really excited to dive into this. I've been selling in the Newry area for really aggressively last couple of years now. Dave and I, that's where we really met.
Yeah.
You started your co-hosting business,
Yep.
and feel like we are experts in the topic. So
Yeah, I'm really excited. And you know what? Newry is really one of the last markets, or I should say, one of the only markets I manage in that's totally unregulated.
right,
And, you know, hot take, I love regulation. I really do.
yeah,
It shows a sign of maturity in a market. And the other thing is, if for anyone that has their hands on this document, If you look at the very first bullet under purpose, health and safety concerns. And if anyone's been listening to me for the last year, I've really been subscribing to Justin Ford and all the work. He's a short-term rental safety consultant and has been really growing in popularity in the short-term rental space. And this is like his hot thing. Let's make these homes safe and a secure place for people to visit, and some regulation around that is really a good thing. And so we're going to kind of go through all of this over the next 20 minutes or so, and we'll kind of give maybe our own forecast at the end of it for what what we think will happen and what will get implemented or not implemented. So make sure you listen all the way through. Let's go down a little bit. Maybe we talk about some of the things that are proposed in here that we really like. We can just kind of go back and forth. Want to start there?
Yeah, and I think before we
Love
start,
it.
just want to put
Yeah.
this note out that came from the code enforcement officer. Up front, the town is not going to limit the amount of rentals. There's
No.
not going to be compliance inspections unless there's a complaint, and the town is not using an outside entity to do any of this work.
Right.
So, like, just to get started and throw that out there, three huge things that you see in other markets is limiting the amount. You see that in Portland,
Right.
Nashville, big markets like that. Outside entities doing sweeps online, and then also inspections. They're only going to inspect if there's an issue. So, with all that being
Yeah.
said, let's jump right in. And yeah, you take the first one.
Yeah, totally. Well, and what I'll say about that, one of the reasons I love markets like Newry, Bethel, Old Orchard Beach, Cape Cod, is because these are markets that heavily depend on the revenue that that this short-term rental industry brings in. If you look at Sunday River, a lot of the income that goes to Sunday River is coming from people renting a home and going skiing there. There's an abundance of vendors that service these homes, from cleaners to hot tub techs to handymen to plumbers, electricians, snow removal. The livelihood of most people in the area depends on the short-term rental industry, and I tend to gravitate to markets like this. So just following up on your point, there's nothing in
Mm.
here around limiting the number of short-term rentals. It's and all that sort of stuff. So some of the things that I love, and these are going to seem like sort of small things, but I love that one of the first call outs it has on the health and safety side is making sure that there is a house number that is viewable from the street. Not one of the things I tell every single homeowner is that you got to have a sign for your home, because a lot of these homes don't have mailboxes. They're not receiving mail, and it's something that kind of is not really thought about after, a home goes up, or these second homes. But not only does that house number or a sign of some kind help guests find your home, if a guest is having trouble finding your home, so is the fire department, so is the police department, so is an ambulance. And so um, things like that were specifically called out in here, I thought was hugely beneficial for the health and the safety of the community.
I love that point, because how many
Yeah.
houses that I show, I can barely find them. I know the area really, really well. I know the street, so a lot of times you can figure it out. But long driveways, remote parts of town, no cell service. That's a really, really, really good point.
Yeah, totally. Two others that I really, really loved that were in here. The first was around fire extinguishers. It requires that a
Mm.
fire extinguisher be in or around the kitchen, as well as another one near the fireplace. I personally like when they're actually mounted on a wall right outside the kitchen, because generally, if there's a fire in the kitchen, people are running out of there. They're not going searching in a cabinet for a fire extinguisher. But I think, there's no public, uh, you know, there's no public water to draw from to put these, fire hydrants to put these fires out most of the time. So I think stuff like that is hugely important. And a lot of times, if someone buys their home, they spend a week setting it up and then they're out, it's just not top of mind. The third point
Another good one.
that I really loved was actually occupancy limits. Now, this might sound like a huge shocker, right? But I love that it said 2 people per bedroom plus an additional two. So if you have a 4 bedroom, you can sleep 10. If you have a 5 bedroom, you can sleep 12. If you have a 6 bedroom, you can sleep 14. I think that's huge because some of the biggest expenses that homeowners incur are replacing septic tanks. And at the end of the day, I do think that some houses that might be a 4 bedroom that sleep 17 or 18 because they have two massive bunk rooms or they just shove a bunch of people in the basement. I just don't think it's safe for the home. And I also think those homes sometimes have an unfair advantage. Um, so yeah, just some interesting ideas and thoughts there.
That's a really interesting point, and I think also I know from a safety perspective, a lot of people are doing these bunk rooms where there's no egress,
Right.
and it's literally just a room in a basement, and that's not safe in a fire situation. There's no way to get out. So that just really brings awareness to the topic of these, fake bedrooms people are putting in. Really won't be allowed in this proposed ordinance, and all this can really change because it's proposed, but it's a really good point. I think a couple things that I really liked was adequate on-site parking. So, I mean, I know stories of, 10, 15, 20 cars, and these are crazy examples, parked everywhere on the street, on the lawn. So again, it's just homes not designed for the amount of guests that people have been having. And then
Totally.
also, honestly, meeting the NFPA 101 life safety codes for emergency egress. So there it is again. A mouthful there. I had to look at what the right numbers and letters were, but again, it's maintaining proper egress and making sure people can get out of the home. Because we've been talking a lot about safety, and I think that's a huge point. And really, what I am taking from this ordinance is they just want to make sure people are being safe. It really doesn't seem like they're trying to limit anybody's income making ability or ruin the fun, but it's a safety thing.
Totally. Another thing that just right here under performance standards, trash control plan.
Huge.
Trash is such an oversight for almost every single short-term rental owner that is new to the game, whether I'm managing for them or whether they're self-managing. These homes, you produce 5, 6, 10 times the amount of trash that you would at your regular home. And on top of that, there is no separation of recycling and trash. There's just not. And so I think having adequate trash barrels and a plan for getting that trash out. I think it even says like clearing out the trash in between each guest. What I love about that is it provides a much better experience for the guest. Let's face it, nobody wants to see somebody's old trash, and there are homeowners that will not get that trash cleared in between every guest because it saves them 25 bucks to wait an extra week to have it gone. Like, no, get it out. Get it out. Give someone a reason not to stay at a hotel and instead to stay at your home. That's just another area like the parking, like you said, the trash control plan, some of these things around life safety. For anyone that doesn't know, life safety refers to like fire safety and being able to exit a home in the event of a fire. I think all of these are really sort of standard baseline table stakes of what people would expect, but it's amazing in unregulated markets how much of this stuff really does go unchecked. Um, One thing I thought was kind of interesting. Actually, there's a few. There's a few things that I thought were kind of interesting. I'm curious how they'd regulate it, and it kind of caught my attention. It says poses a certificate of analysis for drinking water for chloroform and E. coli taken within 1 year of the registration date and shall be tested during the period of any registration renewal. The water up there is hot and cold, baby. I mean, it's really, really interesting. And I would say it's amazing how many homes do not have a water filtration system. And it's unclear if sometimes you can have a water filter just for the kitchen sink. Sometimes you can have a whole house water filter. I know at my Bethel house, $20,000 triple osmosis water filter was put in by the previous owners. It was great because it was super clean and healthy, but that can be a big barrier to entry for some folks. So I'm curious to see what comes of that element here under the performance standards.
Yeah, that's, one I was gonna touch on, so it's a really good point, and you know what? Some water is totally clean. I've sold a lot of houses where there's no
Yeah.
filtration needed because 'cause we're in Maine. I mean, Poland Spring is right down the road from Newry and Bethel, right? So that's where they bottle water. But you get these pockets where there's maybe some radon or manganese or E. coli, which is bacteria in the well, and it can make you sick. And guess what? It's also really easy and inexpensive to bleach a well and fix this, but so many homeowners, I mean, actually, probably 98% of homeowners are not testing their water unless they're selling their home. I mean, so many times in the transaction is the water quality a surprise to a homeowner because why else would you? It's just not something you think about. So I really, really like this because it's dangerous. And you know what? A lot of wells, I think back in the last year of transactions in the area,
Yeah.
had bacteria issues where we had to bleach and shock the well. And that comes from a well cap not being on all the way or the water not being used and ran. So that's a really, really huge point, and I really agree with that being there.
Totally. Totally. Here's another one that I really like that's on here. And I'll say there's more that I like than what I don't like in these, without a doubt. I love under performance standards, working smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Those are built to last 10 years tops, but you don't need them to be updated to buy a home. Now, smoke alarms, especially the ones that are hardwired, they're 60, $65 a pop. And if you're climbing on a 20-foot ladder using a contractor to do that, it's not uncommon to have to spend a grand, $1,500 to get all of them replaced in the home. Those are some of the things that in our management company, we call it Safety September, and it does usually bleed into October as well. But we actually go into every single home and we test. We have a smoke spray. We test all of the smoke detectors, right? Because we're sort of that front line of defense for guests that might be staying there. And a lot of times too, when we launch a property, even if the smoke detector and CO detector is only 4 or 5 years old, we just ask them these days to wipe the slate clean. You're managing with us. We have a certain standard. Let's get every single smoke and CO detector replaced. And then we know exactly when they were put in there. And if we're still managing for you 10 years from now, we can remind you to get those things replaced. But it's a huge oversight, I find, for 99% of the homeowners, unless that homeowner was a fired, is a fireman.
Good point. And speaking of fire, I mean, the last kind of interesting one for me is the fire pit requirement. I don't know if you saw that on there, but no
I did.
portable fire pits. They want you to have a standalone fire pit area with a stone circle around it, which I didn't think about until looking at this, but how dangerous solo stoves and portable fire pits are for
Yeah.
guests that maybe they've had a couple drinks or there's substances or whatnot, but it might feel kind of innocent until I can picture now dragging the solo stove underneath the deck or, away from mosquitoes or something like that. And accidents happen, or maybe somebody trips on it. So I think this is a really interesting point that I didn't even think about till now, but definitely a good intention from it. Yes, all these things are going to cost an investment up front, but it's just to keep people safe. So that was kind of my last one I had
Totally.
earmarked of, that made me think.
Yeah. You know what's interesting too? You see on a lot of the new properties coming out, they'll have a gas fireplace right on the deck. If you read the card, those are supposed to be located at least 60 feet away from the home. I could
Yeah.
absolutely, for obvious reasons, right? When it's
Right.
when it's 5 feet from a home, that's a good way to burn your house down.
Right.
It'll be really interesting to see if anything, if this does pass, because this is just the draft, how much further they take some of these, different regulations and things like that. But it says right on the tag of those gas fireplaces, must be 60 feet from a home and not on a deck. Boom. um,
Crazy.
I also liked the septic maintenance, having to get that thing pumped once a year. Again, I've fallen into this situation where every property I own, except for two that are down in Tennessee, any property I've bought as a vacation rental or lived in has been a septic. Like it just the luck of the draw. So we've been really up on, our house in Bethel. We're getting that pumped twice a year, just why not? You know what I mean? So I like that at least once a year that thing's got to be pumped and inspected. And once again, there's nothing worse for you or the guest if that thing backs up in the middle of the winter, and it happens at these. It backs up in the middle of the winter because you didn't get pumped in the fall or spring. So, you
It's
know,
interesting that you've said you've only owned properties with septic because I run into people who have never. And I know a very good operator who's reached out to me before and he's like, I have a problem backing up. And hey, when was the last time you had your septic pumped? I haven't. Right. And it's something that you don't really acknowledge. And even if you live in a house with a septic, maybe you get your residents pumped, gosh, every 3 or 4 years because the volume of waste isn't that high. But if you're a really successful operator, yeah, you're going to want to get it pumped multiple times a year. I just think it's a good reminder, if anything, for maybe some newer
totally.
homeowners to get on a plan with the septic company and just get this box checked.
Totally. Um, let's talk about some of the unique things I'm not totally sure of that were on here. One of them was the requirement to have an emergency contact that lives within 25 miles of the home. Now, for me, having a business in this area, that's not a big deal at all. We essentially already have that in place, so it's not a big deal. But most of the homeowners live pretty far away, and I don't know how many cleaners want to sign themselves up to be an emergency contact with their phone number posted in a home. Right. For me, I have a central phone number for my management company. It's not hard for us to get everything routed to somebody, but I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm not exactly, and that phone number has to be registered with the Oxford County because there's no Newry Police Department, so it's Oxford County Police Department, and it has to be posted in the home. That one was interesting to me. I think they'll get some pushback on that. What do you think?
Thinking the same exact thing. And really, it's defining the purpose of it. Can it be a cleaner? Does it have to be a handy person or whatnot? That's really, really hard to accommodate for 98% of
Yeah,
these owners who do not even live in the state, majority
yeah,
being New England or outside of New England. So that's really the
yeah,
only thing I'm curious to see how it shakes out,
yeah.
because that's a pretty undesirable job.
It's an undesirable job. I don't know how many property managers want to sign themselves up just to be a, emergency contact. So that one will interest me. A couple others that I thought were kind of interesting that I've never seen on any other ordinances were having a very detailed floor plan of your home, clearly identifying the location of the smoke detectors and CO detectors. Now, I have the technology to do that because we've been going into every single home and posting floor plans of the home into our Airbnb and Vrbo accounts. It's something we just started
Mhm.
doing this year, and by the end of this year, every house will be on that. But for somebody without that technology, putting it on graph paper, that could be quite a challenge. These are some intricate chalets. I'm curious to see if they get any pushback on that.
I think they will.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for just the average homeowner to pull off. That's for sure.
Totally. So here's my last hot take. Okay. Uh, they're going to charge if this passes, they're going to charge a registration fee. I think there's around 500 rentals in Newry between slopeside condos and freestanding homes. Um,
And
the
there's only around
cost,
400 residents in Newry, interestingly.
yeah, so there's more STR owners than residents. Um, the cost of Oxford County, because again, there is no centralized organization in Newry to pull this off. The cost is going to be incurred spread out across Oxford County, not just people in Newry, which means, the registration fees alone will not, I could not imagine will cover the cost of being able to implement and manage all of this. So where does that money come from? Well, it comes from increased taxes. And then my take is that it would come from increased taxes from a whole bunch of towns that are not just Newry. I have a sneaky suspicion that this in general is not really set up for success, even though 90% of it I really love and wish it could somehow be implemented. What are your thoughts?
I think the same thing. I think it's really challenging. I know it's really challenging in a town where you have 400 residents to pull something like this off. And Joelle, the code enforcement officer, is awesome, right? But she's one
One
person.
person.
And Newry doesn't even have a certificate of occupancy, right? You have a building permit, you have a plumbing inspection, the state does an electrical
Yeah.
inspection, and really maybe like a septic inspection, right? So it's pretty laid back and it just comes down to manpower. It's a volunteer
Yeah.
fire department, it's a small town. So the challenge is going to be what actually goes into it. I know even in the city of Portland, our insurance partner there, Susan, has units in Portland and tells us about people operating illegally in the largest city in Maine. And
Yeah.
there's no, Airbnb police, and there's nobody actually looking into this stuff. And that's in the largest city in Maine with a much steeper registration fee. So if they're struggling, it will be really interesting to see how a little vacation ski town in Maine is going to be able to pull this off.
Yeah. And again, when people that live an hour from Newry are getting sucked into something that might make their taxes go up so they can afford one or two new code enforcement officers for this specific topic, I'm guessing two people, that's anywhere between 150 and 200 grand a year in terms of salary and overhead to manage all of this. I'd be
Right.
like, absolutely not. Put that money towards the school system or something else. It doesn't need to go to, it's just my opinion, my take. In towns that are within Cape Cod, for example, there's hundreds of thousands of homes. There's over 1 million residents, right? So there's just a lot more people that can help foot the bill of these different types of initiatives. You just don't have that in Newry. Last year Bethel tried to propose an ordinance. It got shut down. I'm sure, is very similar to this one, which again, almost all of this I'm totally in favor of. So it'll be interesting to see where they land. I do hope that eventually there's a way they can take especially a lot of the life safety stuff that's in here and apply it into some process that's manageable, because I think it'll improve the safety of the guests. I think it'll improve outcomes of the homeowners. I think at the end of the day, it'll be to the satisfaction of the homeowners. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I agree. I think there'll have to be some kind of middle ground, and I look forward to that meeting. I'll be there in attendance, and we'll have to connect after. I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, with that, if you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube, feel free to post your comments with what your opinions are. We'd love to make this an open conversation. We both, are really interested in this topic, as well as the industry as a whole. And if you enjoyed this show, be sure to leave it a 5-star review. And I guess we'll see everyone next week, Will.
We'll catch you next week. Happy hosting.
Take care.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Hassle Free RE. We hope you found today's tips and stories as inspiring and useful as I did. Remember, success in the short-term rental industry is all about learning, adapting, and staying one step ahead. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review or comment on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. Plus, we'd love to hear your thoughts and any topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us at HassleFreeRE on social media for more tips and updates. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep it hassle-free.